Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am the Beltran. Today's video subject matter is how did women ruin politics? Gullibility. Did you know, and unless I'm corrected, the first female president ever, at least in the Western Hemisphere, was Isabel Peron. For those of you who are saying, wasn't that Evita Peron? No. It was Isabel Peron. By the time Juan Domingo Peron was president for the third and final time, he happened to be married to a new woman. Her name was Isabel Peron, and she happened to be a dancer. She actually had a basic understanding of the role and the position because she had been going back and forth between Spain and Argentina. But his second wife, Evita, was more suited to the role. But Isabel Peron got the role purely by default after Juan Peron's death. When Juan Peron came back into power, he opted to allocate his wife Isabel Peron for vice president, so to quell the warring Peronist faction. Upon the demise of Juan Peron, Isabel Peron had a very moronic or stupid or unorthodox way in which she made her decisions. She befriended José López Rega, a former police officer who in fact dabbled in witchcraft, fortune telling, and the occult. And this is how she made her decisions for the country. As president, she reportedly employed astrological divination to establish national policy. This is also not the first time I have personally heard of women rulers who lean or depend on men who dabble in the occult, or at least who overly rely on a man. Last Empress of Russia, the Tsar's wife, Alexandria Feodorovna, was also in this category. Rasputin comes to mind. Even Queen Victoria's mother had an unusual relationship with John Conroy, who was her comptroller. A comptroller is essentially someone in a management position, like a regent pulling all the strings. The point is, these women had these men looking over their shoulders, being influenced by their presence, and they believed their rhetoric and direction. Women, generally speaking, are more dictated by emotion than they are by reason and fact. According to this study, Perceptions of Gullibility in Faces, we hypothesize that gender will have an effect on gullibility ratings such that women would be perceived as more gullible than men, independent of emotional expression, happy versus neutral. Our hypothesis concerning the influence of gender was also confirmed. Women were, on average, perceived as slightly more gullible than men. I think this perception is relatively accurate. There's a reason why men throughout history are usually called upon to lead. There are always exceptions to the rule. A woman could easily be right for the role, but generally speaking, overall, the political game tends to be a man's game. Point. This does not mean that there are no gullible men. There are. The point is that on a statistical average, this is more true for women. Second reason, too emotional. Also, whilst I can identify with my fellow women, I do think it's important to take people on a case-by-case basis, rather than like formulating a manufactured side. Let's go by authentic character over genitalia. That's not to say that one should not analyze the pattern of a collective. Here in Australia, we have a politician that has been abbreviated to SHY, Sarah Hanson-Young. I believe outside the forum of politics, she is most likely a kind and caring human. However, in this space, in this man's world, so to speak, SHY does exhibit herself relatively poorly. In this video, SHY gets emotional because she attributes her gay childhood best friend being unnecessarily bullied as akin to the entire country not legalizing a practice that was traditionally, for history past, a male and female practice, marriage.
Young people in Australia deserve better than that. The yes vote that occurred 2 weeks ago is so important.
In this video, Shai gets emotional over gender politics. Do these men insult her directly? Quite possibly. I know David Lionhelm, in fact, did not directly insult her, but she believes he called her a slut.
Real men don't insult and threaten women. They don't slut shame them, and they don't attack them and make them feel bullied in their workplace.
This is the landscape of the world she has chosen. Just as an aside, real politics is different to socio-political commentary. In this video, Shai gets emotional over an Indonesian life lost while the country debated the asylum bill. Whilst I share in her sentiment of a life lost, I can't help struggle to reconcile how she cries over one individual but advocates for universal abortion and the lives of many babies lost.
He boarded a boat and came to Australia. He was one of the 500 people that we detained for up to 3 months last year while we debated the Malaysia solution.
What do the tears get you, Sarah? I mean, I've cried on camera myself. I get emotional hearing other people's stories, but on your end, it kind of looks like theatrics. This is one woman chosen out of thousands of female politicians that exist, and we found 3 examples. According to a Pew social trends study, this is the information acquired on male and female emotions. Showing emotions is seen, on balance, as being more harmful than helpful to both men and women. Still, more say this hurts female leaders than male leaders. About half, 52%, say showing emotions hurts women in politics. 39% say this about men. Smaller shares say this helps women, 24%, and women, 17%, in getting elected to higher office. The patterns are similar for business leaders. So it's unfavorable for both sexes, but it is perceived more as a female trait. And finally, voting. Touchy subject, I know, but give me a moment. Before all of you women jump down my throat and misconstrue my argument, know that I actually think it's fantastic that both the male and female vote is deemed as equal in its effect and capacity. I have a caveat. So what is my caveat? My caveat is in a video I made previously. I'll pop it up here. My caveat essentially is, for the quick rundown, that neither male or female should be able to vote unless they pass an examination, whether they are left, whether they are right, whether they are centrist, or whether they don't want to identify with the spectrum at all. These are my caveats: that they pass an examination that shows that they understand how the legal system in the country works, that they and they can only pass the examination based on these qualifying factors. So you cannot take the exam unless you have 1, own your own property, 2, own your own business, 3, your family's been here for at least 3 generations, 4, you've served in the military or the army. It's just little checkpointers like that. So if you pass all of those, or at least some of them, I personally, under my policy prescription, would say then you can vote, male or female. So that's my caveat. So the reason I added voting was because, based on history past, women more likely vote based on emotion, rather than on logic and policy. However, women who are married tend to vote right-leaning. Republican. According to this MSN article, of all things, women since 1980 in the USA have predominantly voted left, Democrat, in spite of women having had the vote for the last 100 years. For the first time since the passage of the 19th Amendment, women voted at the same rate as men. First time they voted noticeably different from men. Party removed support for the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, from its platform that year, after 40 years of relatively consistent support. The first time since Roe v. Wade was decided, there was a clear divide between the candidates on support of abortion rights. Reagan was on the record supporting a constitutional amendment banning them. Note that women vote against their own interests, voting for the access of killing their own sons and daughters. Thankfully, Reagan won that year, but the number of women voting against their own interests, the number of women who vote left, who vote Democrat, is quite startling. Because women are emotional, they believe the grandstanding and pontificating attitudes they are talked down to by people like Biden, by people like Hillary Clinton, and they believe it, and because they believe it, they vote it. Women voting against their own interests, being manipulated and lied to, gullible. Women being taken by stories of pain and heartache, too emotional. Again, if women were good at voting, we would see better results all over the world. Sweden has a feminist government, but Sweden is also the rape capital of the Western world. South Africa has a high percentage of women in parliament, 46.75% to be specific. And what is the condition of their white citizens? Bolivia has a 53% female dominance over a male 47%. And what is the condition of Bolivia? Massacres, poverty, and rape. Have women overall ruined the political world? I would argue that our biological traits favor a yes for this question. However, I have not outlined what women have done and how they have vastly improved nations as well, and what traits they acquire that would be fitting for the position. Additionally, men these days are not men. The men of today have allowed liberalism and leftism to infect and indoctrinate their consciousness and their physicality. These men should not be voting either. And the men who think they should be able to vote, who claim to be masculine men, are actually man-children and should not have access to voting if they vote based on their actions, which are often quite emotional as well. But this is a video topic for another time that I may or may not look into. Again, it is worth noting that there are always exceptions to the rule, and there are fantastic female rulers out there. Margaret Thatcher comes to mind. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, but most importantly, share it around so people can see the message. Remember to love one another. Catch you later.